Hey everyone, welcome back. Great to have all of you here again. We are continuing our polity series, and today we are moving to a chapter that students often underestimate but which UPSC has tested repeatedly in a very tricky way. We are covering part 2 of the Constitution today, which deals with citizenship, specifically Articles 5 to 11. Now, before you think this is just a set of boring articles about who is a citizen, let me tell you that the partition context behind these articles makes them extremely interesting and also very testable. The entire chapter was written to solve a real crisis of identity that emerged in 1947. So stay with me and let us go article by article. Let us get into it. Article 5 answers the most basic question: who was a citizen of India on the day the Constitution came into force, which was January 26, 1950? The formula has two parts. You needed to first satisfy the domicile condition, meaning you had to have your permanent home in India at the time of commencement. And then additionally, you had to satisfy at least one of three conditions. The first condition is that you were born in the territory of India. The second is that either of your parents was born in the territory of India. And the third is that you had been ordinarily resident in India for at least 5 years immediately before the constitution came into force. So, domiciles plus any one of these three equals citizenship at commencement. Note that this article applies only to people who were in India on that date. People who had migrated or were living abroad are handled by separate articles. Now, Article 6 handles one of the most important post partition realities. Millions of people had migrated from what became Pakistan to India. The question was, which of them qualified for citizenship? The mandatory precondition is ancestry. The person themselves, or either parent or any grandparent, must have been born in undivided India as defined under the Government of India Act 1935. This ancestral link to the original territory of India is the gateway. Without it, Article 6 does not apply at all. Once that precondition is satisfied, the article then introduces a critical date, which is July 1948. That date divides migrants into two groups, and the next slide explains exactly how. This date is extremely important and is a direct prelims target. The rule is simple. If you migrated to India before July 1948 and have been ordinarily resident in India since the date of that migration, you are automatically deemed a citizen. No registration needed. But if you came to India on or after July 19, 1948, you are not automatically a citizen. You have to go through a formal registration process before an appointed government officer. And to be eligible for that registration, you must have been ordinarily resident in India for at least 6 months immediately before the date of your application. So the two groups are: before July 19, 1948 means automatic citizenship with continuous ordinary residence. On or after July 19, 1948 means you need 6 months of residence and then formal registration. Why the state? Because as the partition chaos continued into 1948, the government drew this line to distinguish early refugees from later, possibly more opportunistic migrants. Now, this is the counterpart to Article 6. Article 7 deals with people who went the other way, meaning those who migrated from India to Pakistan after partition. The rule is clear and strict. If a person migrated to Pakistan after March 1, 1947, they are not a citizen of India. Article 7 explicitly overrides both Article 5 and Article 6. So, even if you were born in India and would have qualified under Article 5, the moment you migrated to Pakistan after that date, you lost any claim to Indian citizenship. But there is one important exception, called the U turn exception. If someone had migrated to Pakistan but then returned to India under a permit specifically for resettlement or permanent return, the law treats them as if they had migrated to India after July 19, 1948. This means they have to go through the Article 6 registration process with 6 months of residence and formal registration by a government officer. They do not get automatic citizenship, but they do get a legal path back. Article 8 addresses a completely different situation. What about people of Indian origin who were living outside India at the time the constitution came into force? These are what we now loosely call PIOs, or persons of Indian origin. The ancestral root condition is the same as in Article 6. The person themselves, or either parent or any grandparent, must have been born in India as defined under the Government of India Act 1935. Their current status is that they are ordinarily residing in any country outside India. The acquisition mechanism is registration by the diplomatic or consular representative of India in that particular country. Importantly, this registration could happen either before or after the commencement of the Constitution. So, this article has a slightly broader temporal window compared to the other articles. The practical significance is that it kept the door open for members of the Indian diaspora spread across countries like Burma, Ceylon, East Africa, and elsewhere to claim Indian citizenship through their ancestral connection to the subcontinent. Article 9 is short but very powerful. It establishes the rule of single citizenship, which is a foundational principle of the Indian Constitution. The rule is this: if a person voluntarily acquires the citizenship of any foreign state, they immediately lose their Indian citizenship. There are no exceptions, no grace period, and no application process involved. It is automatic and immediate. Critically, Article 9 absolutely overrides the grants of citizenship made under Articles 5, 6, and 8. So, even if you were a citizen under any of those earlier articles, the moment you voluntarily take up foreign citizenship, you lose Indian citizenship completely. This is why India officially does not permit dual citizenship. This is also important to understand in the context of OCI, which is Overseas Citizen of India. OCI is not actual citizenship, it is a long term visa status with certain privileges. True dual citizenship, meaning holding two passports, is not permitted under the Constitution. Article 10 is a protective provision. Its message is essentially once a citizen, always a citizen, subject to certain conditions. What it says is that every person who is or is deemed to be a citizen under Part 2 of the Constitution continues to hold that citizenship status going forward. The Constitution does not create a situation where your citizenship can be taken away arbitrarily just because some new law comes in. However, there is a very important limitation. This continuance of citizenship is subject to the provisions of any law that may be made by Parliament. So, Parliament has the power to pass laws that could affect citizenship status, and Article 10 does not override that parliamentary authority. The protection is real, but it operates within the space that Parliament defines. Article 11 is the closing provision of Part 2, and it is very important to understand correctly. It says clearly that nothing in the preceding provisions of Part 2 shall derogate from the power of Parliament to make any provision with respect to citizenship. In plain language, Articles 5 to 10 did not put any permanent limitation on Parliament's authority over citizenship. Parliament has supreme power over three things. First, the acquisition of citizenship. Second, the termination of citizenship. And third, all other matters relating to citizenship. This is the constitutional foundation on which the Citizenship Act of 1955 was passed. All the detailed rules we follow today for acquiring citizenship by birth, descent, registration, and naturalization all flow from that parliamentary legislation. And it is under Article 11 that Parliament also passed the Citizenship Amendment Act of 2019, which came up extensively in current affairs. So the relationship is Articles 5 to 10 handled the transition at the time of the Constitution. Article 11 handed over all future control to Parliament. This is your last minute revision table. Let me run through it quickly. Article 5 is about domicile at commencement, and citizenship flows from birth, descent, or 5 years of ordinary residence. Article 6 is for those who migrated from Pakistan, and the July 19, 1948 cutoff determines whether they get automatic citizenship or need to register. Article 7 is for those who migrated to Pakistan after March 1, 1947 and lost citizenship, with the exception of those who returned on a permanent permit. Article 8 protects persons of Indian origin living abroad who can register through Indian diplomatic representatives. Article 9 enforces single citizenship, meaning voluntary acquisition of foreign citizenship causes immediate loss of Indian citizenship. Article 10 guarantees continuance of citizenship rights but subject to Parliament's power to legislate. Article 11 gives Parliament absolute and supreme authority over all matters of citizenship going forward, and this is the foundation of the Citizenship Act 1955. The big picture to carry away is this. Articles 5 to 11 were not written in a vacuum. They were written in the middle of one of the most massive human migrations in history. Every article was solving a real problem of the partition era. Understanding that context makes these articles not just easier to remember but also much more meaningful. That wraps up today's session on Part 2 Citizenship. Please revise the July 19, 1948 cutoff carefully because that specific date appears in questions. Also, remember the difference between Article 6, which is about migrants coming from Pakistan, and Article 7, which is about those who went to Pakistan. Students mix those two up all the time. Thank you so much for being here. Keep up the great work with your preparation, and I will see you in the next session. All the best.